Interviews with top newsmakers, leaders, and interesting people. This is Talk of the Tiers.
Welcome to this week's Talk of the Tiers. I have a very special guest. This gentleman, if you know anything about progressive rock, you know the name Steve Hackett. He's in concert at the Ithaca State Theater on October 4th. And if you want tickets, you need to act fast because I looked at the seat map last night and there aren't a lot of good seats left. Steve, thank you for being here, man. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you, Jim. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
And I start this show the same way every week, asking you to verify that you and I have not discussed the questions I'm about to ask, and you'll hear them for the first time when I ask them.
Absolutely not. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, you're coming to Ithaca, and I'm assuming there's going to be a mixture of your music for Genesis and your solo collection, and the tour title might be a bit of a giveaway on that.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, as you probably know, in 1974, when I was with Genesis, we released an album called Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I'm going to be doing 9 pieces from that. It's a double album. I'm not doing the entire thing, but a substantial amount of it. And the title of the live album I did at the Royal Albert Hall a few months ago is called The Lamb Stands Up, live at the Royal Albert Hall. So it's gone to the top of the rock charts over here, which I'm thrilled about. And so Genesis is kind of in the news because there will be a box set of the original Lamb Lies Down on Broadway album coming out. I think it's September, October. And so, that's something for fans. It's a box set. There'll be an Atmos mix, various things. And I love doing this stuff live, but I also do, as you so rightly said, solo stuff as well. So I like to mix it. There will be some other Genesis stuff as well. There's The Whole of Supper's Ready. We're going to be doing that. We'll be working with Nick DiVigilio again, who has another Genesis connection. He's worked with the band in more recent years than me. But it's a 3-hour show. I like to think it's a very good show. The band are extraordinary. It's a kind of United Nations of a band. There are people from different parts of Europe involved. There are 2 Swedish guys, both Nat Sylvan on vocals and Jonas Reingold, also Swedish. We've got Rob Townsend, who lives in Denmark now. I'm holding up the British end, me and Roger King. Plus, as I say, there's an American. It's Nick DiVigilio. It's great that we're all kind of, we're all coming together and doing that, and no tariffs involved.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, I got to tell you a quick story. I got a date because of you one time. I wanted to take this girl out, and I knew that she liked Genesis. I knew nothing about your band. So I went out and bought the cassette of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And I said, yeah, I got this cassette. We can listen to it while we drive around. And I loved it. It was great. So thank you. I got a date with somebody.
Oh, really? It didn't put her off because,
No, she loved it.
She must have been keen, because if you're going to put her through 90 minutes of that, that's the first time I've heard a story like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was definitely a good thing.
Okay.
I can't believe it's been 50 years since you introduced us to Rael Imperial Aerosol King. Does it feel like it's been that long, or does time just fly by?
Well, it does and it doesn't. I remember it very well, but I guess being grown up, or allegedly being grown up, is very different when you're in the first 10 years of your life. It seems like 100 years because you're so desperate, at least I was, to grow up and become a teenager. And then, of course, you want to slow it all down. So I look at it now and I think, well, hey, it was really that long ago, but the music is still relevant, hopefully. And I like to honor that early work that we did then, and also do new stuff to try and be vital to do that, not just to be, not just to keep the museum doors open, but also even if the exhibits are, every bit as good as the traveling mummy show, but also, to do new stuff. And And that keeps me on my toes writing new stuff and performing it as well.
I'm glad you said that because I downloaded your last two albums. I'm not sure I'll get this name right. Djabi? Is that the
Oh,
name of
Jarby.
yours?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Jarby.
yeah,
Now that's a Hungarian band.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's a
the
Hungarian
album,
fusion band. Yes.
yeah, the album is, I loved it. It's very, the last two albums you've done, one was a live album, and then you
Yeah.
did the one I just mentioned. They're both kind of jazz infused, but you could kind
Yes.
of hear the Steve Hackett progressive riffs in there a little bit too.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because whenever I work with Jarby, what they want from me is stuff that's completely improvised. They don't want me to come up with set things. That's just the way they are. And they work with guest musicians throughout the world all the time. So I've met so many musicians and people who play wonderful instruments from Azerbaijan to Morocco. So they're not just jazz; they're fusion. I think it's the best way of describing them, and they're getting better all the time. They're really really good. I just worked with them a week or two ago, funnily enough, and there was some extraordinary stuff going on.
Well, I want to tell everybody if they have not heard that album, and I don't have the title written down, but I downloaded and listened to it. It's very good. What's the name of that latest
Yeah,
album?
the album's called Freya. Freya. It's a very good. It's a very good album, um, and I think you might enjoy it. As I say, it's some great musicians who are blowing away for all they're worth.
Okay, we'll be back with more of Talk of the Tears and Steve Hackett in 2 minutes. Please stick around. All right, we're back with Steve Hackett. Steve, what a lineup the Genesis had. I
Yeah,
mean, there was you, there was Phil Collins, obviously Peter Gabriel, Tony
yep,
Banks, and Mike Rutherford, who are accomplished musicians in their own right. Did you all
yep.
know what you had when you formed Genesis? Did you really have a handle knowing, oh my gosh,
No, it's a funny thing, you join a band and you think, well, that guy's the drummer, this guy's the keyboard player. You don't think this guy's going to become the most famous drummer in the world. And not just for his drumming, but for his singing and all the stuff. An immensely capable band, immensely capable team of writers. And so I realized that dream. I joined a team of writers, but I had no idea that in 1973, just as we were leaving New York, desperate to get a gig elsewhere in the States, John Lennon said he considered us to be true sons of the Beatles. And every time I'm stuck trying to write something with a song, I think, well, this guy thought we could do it. So, praise doesn't come from any higher quarter than that. If you grew up in the 1960s, as I did in my teens then, and the Beatles were riding high and doing extraordinary work, and not just pop stuff, but also highly experimental stuff. They really brought the world together, and so yeah, I mean that's the best review I ever had. It doesn't get better than that.
but then Tony Banks said something very nice about you not too long ago too. He said he thought you were really the one. I'm paraphrasing here. Correct me, please, if I get the quote wrong. But he said you were the only one that was really keeping the legacy of Genesis alive. Is that accurate? What he said?
Well, yeah, he said that a while ago, and I'm very pleased that Tony has said that. He could have been critical, but he said you're keeping the legacy alive, and I think it is worth preserving. I think there were some great tunes, and Tony wrote some wonderful stuff. I mean, harmonically, it was way out in front. I happen to think he was a brilliant songwriter, a brilliant musician, and really come up with unlikely, groundbreaking sequences. I think he and I shared a love of classical stuff, but then I think each of us was two people. I listened to Baroque and I also listened to blues. So I loved that. Each one of us seemed to, Mike Rutherford liked Led Zeppelin, but Judy Collins at the same time.
Yeah.
So stuff that's poles apart. And Pete loved Otis Redding, Nina Simone, and Music Concrete, the stuff that was to become the world of sample and all that. So you had each of us were kind of schizophrenic, or we have very wide Catholic tastes, if you like.
Now, when you recorded The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and it was released, did you know that you were doing something that truly had never been done before? I mean, it's hard to not say it was a truly groundbreaking work, which it was.
I think that at the time, you see, when you're working on something, you've got the responsibility for being everyone else's night out. And when you're a cog in the wheel, you can't see the full picture. That's impossible. You listen to Ringo talking about, the Beatles things. He said, I had no idea what I was doing. I just played drums. Well, it was a little different, because I was one of the writers. But I had no idea of the value of it, because shortly what was to follow was punk. And it was really sort of anti-heroic, anti-detail, anti-many things, nihilistic, all the rest. And so it was hailed as a new broom sweeping clean. But suddenly, overnight, we became very unfashionable. And of course, ironically, there's a central character who's supposed to be a Puerto Rican punk. So perhaps in some strange way, we presaged what was to follow. But I think the album was rather more wordy and more poetic. And there's lots of great playing on it, as well as some great tunes as well. So I do 9 pieces from it live, the stuff that's not dependent on the narrative, not dependent on the story, in order to have room to do other things, such as Supper's Ready, another Genesis favorite. I want to be able to show the whole picture rather than just one aspect of it.
I'm looking forward to the show. All right, everybody, we'll be back with Steve Hackett in 2 minutes. Please stick around. Welcome back to Talk of the Tears with founding member of Genesis, Steve Hackett. Steve, I like to ask the musicians that I interview about the guitars they play, and usually they only play one, but you play a Les Paul and a Stratocaster at different times. Do you prefer one, or you just like, because they both have different sounds? Do you just prefer one for certain types of music, and how do you choose?
Oh my God. Well, guitars, there's electric guitar, there's acoustic guitar, there's nylon guitar, classical guitar, there's electric, there's 12-string. They're all different instruments. They make a completely different noise. One screams, the other one sighs. I mean, all of that. So I grew up as a fan of both Andre Segovia and Jimi Hendrix. Whether or not they would have ever managed to have a satisfactory musical conversation, I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, Baroque and blues, they're both player-based mediums, and both guitarists were brilliant, but they were coming from different ends of the universe, alive at the same time. But guitar to one would not be the same as to the other. I love it all. I play a Fernandez most of the time. It's a Les Paul shape. In some ways, it's a bit like a hot rod Les Paul. It's got a sustainer pickup in it, and there's a tremolo arm on it as well. So it enables me to do things that there's no tyranny of volume. I don't have to deafen anyone with that. It gets onboard feedback. It will go on forever. That's really brilliant. But then you've got nylon guitar. You've got the wonderful world of Bach played on classical guitar. I've recorded some of that stuff too. So I like all these different things, and perhaps Genesis was a fusion of a lot of these different schools of thought, a sort of collision of things that perhaps shouldn't have been in the same song, but they were. So I love lots of different kinds of music, not just one thing.
You walked away from the band. It wasn't long after Gabriel left, but it was in the late 70s and early 80s. Genesis started moving toward a pop sound, not sort of going away from the progressive rock that made the band.
Yeah.
You walked away right before Abacab was released, which turned out to be just a monster hit. Do you ever look back and say, oops?
Well, it's a funny thing, I've had hits myself, and also with GTR, I had a band with Steve Howe, and we had a hit single in the States called When the Heart Rules the Mind, which is something I re-recorded not that long ago with Steve Rothery of Marillion. I think you can look back and say, yeah, great to have hits, but I don't usually think to myself, I'll play all the greatest hits. I just think I'll play the most interesting music. That's how I see it. So to say something is a hit or a miss or a success or a failure is a bit of a misnomer. It's the things that turn people on, like yourself. You know, you say, here's something that was truly groundbreaking. So I guess, you know, you have to have your, as Procol Harum said, you know, with A Salty Dog, their Citizen Kane moments. You know, Citizen Kane, not a hit film, seminal for film school. I rest my case, Millard.
I had no idea that you had played with Steve Howe. He's another guitarist that I think
Yep.
he's kind of on the Mount Rushmore, like you are,
Oh,
you know,
well,
of progressive rock. Because well, you and yet your band and yes, you really were. I think the two first super groups that brought progressive rock to the forefront. Then Rush came along and others. But well, how was that playing with Steve Howe? I didn't know, so I have to ask you that follow up.
yeah. It was great working with him. I think, ironically, we wrote the hit single the second day that we worked together. He had a song with a fabulous instrumental bit in it to introduce it, and I had a song. I thought my song was stronger, but my song was searching for an instrumental bit like his. So we wrote the hit song on day 2 of our association together. Then we spent 2 years forming a band, doing all the, you know, the things that you do, the ritual of getting it in front of people, and so yeah, that was a very, very interesting time, and that was a mid-80s phenomenon, and rather different to Yes. Steve had also been in Asia and had great success with them. So he'd had 70s success, he'd had 80s success. I had a minor hit single in the UK with Cell 151 from Highly Strung. So you know, we had history, and I think that's what sold the idea to Clive Davis, who did a wonderful job promoting that album in the States. Arista were a great company. Clive was working with Whitney Houston at the time, and she was riding high, and she was fabulous. And I got to meet her, and she seemed very, very modest and very, very lovely, and great tragedy that she's gone, but you know, a protege of Clive. They did a wonderful job.
Well, we'll be back to wrap up this Talk of the Tears with Steve Hackett in 2 minutes. I hope you'll stick around. Back with Steve Hackett. Steve, you're playing the State Theater of Ithaca, 1,600 seats.
Yep.
Do you like playing? I mean, I've heard artists say they really like playing smaller venues because they can reach out to the crowd. They really experience the crowd more. Is that the way you look at it?
Well, I have to say, in my last 2 years of working with Genesis, we were playing very large places, and it often sounded like a 747 was taking off instead of a rock band performing something. You know, places that were designed for sports, etc. Madison Square Garden was one of the better sounding arenas in that way. But I think that if you want a great sound, theaters are where that's born. I think. It's a place where everyone can see it if you've got a decent seat. If you're in a club, it's harder because you're peering behind something. You almost see the drummer, but not quite what's going on there. And then, you know, if you're doing arenas or stadiums, it's let's hope the screens are doing the work because you can't really see who's on stage. So I would say theaters are ideal. So I love doing theaters, and I love playing to enthusiastic audiences. And I've been very lucky in recent years that that the stuff that I do has become so well known. I've been very, very lucky with that. I think I was very lucky to work with Genesis, and I like to think they were lucky to work with me. We were, you know, we were something extraordinary together, and they were all brilliant. I think they were a brilliant team. Whether they'll say the same about me, I don't know. But you know. The other guys were, yeah,
Well, if
they were great.
people watching this either on WTM or on our digital product, if you have not tried Steve Hackett's solo work, I think you should. Steve, I'm assuming that you've picked up some tips over the years on effective touring, because when we first got started in music, I would imagine touring was a little different than what it is today. What are the tips
Oh,
you
yeah.
picked up to keep you going now?
Oh, okay. Well, you know, I'm different now. You know,
Yeah.
when I was, you know, a young guy in my 20s, we partied a lot. Yeah. We didn't do too many drugs, which is why I think we're all still alive. I think, am I giving advice to people here? You know, I would say, yeah, you know, try and get sleep, try and stay healthy, because the road will wreck you anyway. You know, just try to keep up. But for some people, they feel that they're healthiest on the road because you're so exhausted every night, just getting from A to B, do your show, go to bed, that you will sleep in strange beds.
Mhm.
It's actually, you know, it's arguably healthier than being at home. Yeah, the meals, okay, yeah, it's going to vary. It's not always going to be a gourmet moment, but hey, you are on the road, you are traveling, and you're still doing the thing that you love, which is my story. So
Yep.
I can't complain.
All right, well, Steve Hackett, State Theater of Ithaca, October 4th, starting time 7:30. There are still a few tickets available. Steve, thank you so much. I hope
Thank you,
you are
Jim.
safe and have a great trip on the road. We'll see you in Ithaca, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Jim. All the best. Thank you. I love you talking to you.
You too. Thank you.